So, hello and welcome back yet again to another evening with Beverly of Graustark, who has now been completely uncovered, at least as far as she knows, to Baldos, who knows that she is actually Beverly Calhoun of the United States of America. But they seem to have decided that they're just going to keep this charade going, although given the fact that in the last chapter they realized that everybody, including Count Marlanx, who seems to be being set up as our primary antagonist, was possibly within earshot. We're gonna have to wait and see how that all plays out. I guess that does let me know what our Act 3 drama is going to be, possibly. I don't know. I guess if I have to make any predictions, I'm going to say that Count Marlanx overheard everything and knows the game is up, and so he's going to arrest Baldos, and the rest of this will be Beverly trying to prove his innocence. I could be wrong, but I could be right. So if I'm going to make any sort of predictions, that is going to be my prediction. It's funny. I was describing this as sort of the early 1900s like Harlequin romance, and I can kind of see it as that. This is definitely, or maybe like a pulp fiction novel. It makes me wonder if there were any like sci-fi or fantasy novels from the same era that were also written in sort of a looser style, because I'm enjoying the style that this is written in. I'm not really a big romance reader normally, but I'm having a lot of fun with this one. So with all of that being said, it is time to jump back into chapter 19 of Beverly of Graustark by George Barr McCutcheon, and chapter 19 is titled The Night Fires. Why, good evening! Is that you? Struggled somewhat hysterically from Beverly's lips. Not since the dear old days of the stolen jam and sugar bits had she known the feeling of a culprit caught red-handed. The light from the park lamps revealed a merry, accusing smile on the face of Yedev, but the faces of the men looked serious. Marlanx was the picture of suppressed fury. "It is the relief expedition, Your Highness," said Yedev. "We thought that you were lost in the wilds of the jungle." "She is much better protected than we could have imagined," said the Iron Count, malevolently mild and polite. "Can't I venture into the park without being sent for?" asked Beverly, ready to fly into the proper rage. The pink had left her cheeks, and they were white now. "I'm proud to observe, however, that the relief expedition is composed of the most distinguished people in all of Graustark. Is there any significance to be attached to the circumstances?" "Can't we also go strolling in the park, my dear?" said Yedev. "It depends on where we stroll, I fancy," said Marlanx. Beverly flashed a fierce look at the head of the army. "By the way, Baron Dangloss, where is the incomparable Haddon?" Baldos shot a startled glance at the two men, and in an instant comprehension came to him. He now knew the secret of Haddon's constant companionship. An expression of bitter scorn settled into his mouth. Dangloss mumbled a reply, at which the Iron Count laughed sarcastically. "Well, I'm returning to the castle," said Beverly. "Pray don't let me interfere with your stroll. Or is it possible that you think it necessary to deliver me safely to my nurse now that you found me." "Don't be angry, dear," whispered Yetive, coming close to her. "I will tell you all about it later. It was all due to Count Marlanx." "It was all done to humiliate me," said Beverly, indignation surpassing her confusion at last. "I hate all of you." "Oh, Beverly," whispered the princess in distress. "Well, maybe you were led into it," said Beverly, halfway mollified. "Look at that old villain whispering over there. No wonder his wives up and died. They just had to. I hate everybody but you and Count Halfort and Baron Dangloss." Which, upon reflection, left only one that she supposedly hated. "And Baldos," said Yetive. "I wish you'd be sensible," said Beverly, and Yetive's soft laugh then irritated her. "How long were you listening to us?" "Not so much as the tiniest part of a minute," said Yetive, recalling another disastrous eavesdropping. "I am much wiser when Baldos first came to serve you. We were actually quite a distance behind Count Marlanx, I assure you of that." "Then he heard something?" said Beverly. "He has been in a detestable mood ever since we rejoined him. Might he have heard something disagreeable?" "No. On the contrary, it was quite agreeable." During this time, Baldos was standing at attention a few paces off, a model soldier despite the angry shifting of his eyes. He saw that they had been caught in a most unfortunate position. No amount of explaining could remove the impression that had been forced upon the witnesses, voluntary or involuntary as the case may be. Baldos could do nothing to help Beverly, while she was compelled to face the suspicions of her friends. At best, it could be considered nothing short of a clandestine meeting, the consequences of which she, not he, must suffer. In his heated brain, he was beginning to picture scandal with all of the disgusting details that grow from evil misrepresentations. Count Halfort separated himself from the group of three and advanced to the sedan chair. Marlanx and Dangloss were arguing nearby in low tones. "Shall we return, your highness?" said Halfort, addressing both women with one of his rare smiles. "If I remember correctly, we were to dine in famille tonight, and it is well upon the hour. Besides, Count Marlanx is a little distressed by your absent-mindedness, Miss Beverly, and I fancy that he's eager to have it out with you." "My absent-mindedness? What is it that I have forgotten?" said Beverly. "That's the trouble, dear," said Yetive. "You forgot your promise to teach him how to play that awful game called poker. He has waited for you at the castle since 6 o'clock, and it's now 8. Is it any wonder that he led a search party? He's been on pins and needles for an hour and a half." "Oh, goodness, I wager he is in a temper," said Beverly, with no remorse to her voice, but a bit of apprehension. "It might be wise to apologize to him," said Yetive, and her uncle nodded. "All right. I think I can get him into a good humor without half trying. Oh, Count Marlanx, come here, please. You're angry with me, aren't you? Wasn't it awful for me to run away and leave you to play solitaire instead of poker? But don't you know, I was so wretchedly tired after the ride, and I just knew that you wouldn't mind if I—" And so she ran glibly on, completely forestalling him, to the great amusement of the others. Nevertheless, she was very nervous and embarrassed over the whole situation. There was every reason to fear that the Iron Count had heard and seen enough to form a pretty good opinion of what had passed between her and Baldos in this secluded corner of the park. There was a deep sense of shame taking possession of her. Marlanx, smiling significantly, looked into her brave little face and permitted her to talk on until she ran out of breath and composure. Then he bowed with exaggerated gallantry and informed her that he was hers to command, and that it was not for him to forgive, but just to accept whatever was her gracious pleasure. He called her chair-bearers, and they took up their burden. Beverly promptly changed her mind and decided to walk to the castle. And so they started off, the chair going on ahead as if out of commission forever. Despite her efforts to do so, the American girl, feeling quite abused by the way, was unsuccessful in the attempt to keep the princess by her side. Yetive deliberately walked ahead with Halfort and Dangloss. It seemed to Beverly that they walked unnecessarily fast and that Marlanx was provokingly slow. Baldos stayed 20 paces behind, as was his custom. "Is it necessary for me to ask you to double the number of lessons that I am to have?" said Marlanx. He was far too close to her to please Beverly. "Can't you learn in one lesson? Most Americans think that they know everything about poker after their first game." "I am not so quick-witted, Your Highness." "Far be it from me to accelerate your wits, Count Marlanx. That might not be profitable." "You might profit by losing, you know," he ventured, coming even closer. "Poker is not the only game of chance. It was chance that gave me a winning hand tonight." "I don't understand." "It will be my pleasure to teach you in return for instructions I am to have. I have tried to teach your excellent guard one phase of the game, but he has not profited, I fear. He has been blind enough to pick a losing hand in spite of my advice. It's the game of hearts." Suddenly Beverly understood. She moved away with a shudder. Her wits, however, did not desert her. "I know that game," she said. "One's object is to cast off all hearts. I've been very lucky at that one, Count Marlanx." Was his comment. "Isn't this a night for lovers?" he went on, changing his tactic. "To stroll in the shadows, where even the moon is blind, is a joy that love alone provides. Come, fair mistress, share this joy with me." And with that, his hand closed over her soft arm above the elbow, and she was drawn close to his side. Beverly's first shock of revulsion was succeeded by the distressing certainty that Baldos was now a helpless witness to this indignity. She tried to pull her arm away, but he held it tight. "Release my arm, sir!" she cried, hoarse with passion. "Call your champion, my lady. It will mean his death. I have evidence that will ensure his conviction and execution within an hour. Nothing can save him. Call him, I say, and—" "I will call him. He is my sworn protector, and I will command him to knock you down if you don't go away." "At his peril." "Baldos!" she called, without a second's hesitation. He came up with a rush, just as Marlanx released her arm and backed away with a muttered oath. "Your Highness," cried Baldos, who had seen everything. "Are you afraid to die?" she demanded. "No." "Well, that's all," she said, suddenly calm. "I merely wanted to prove that to Count Marlanx." Tact had come to her relief most opportunely. Like a flash, she saw that a conflict between the commander of the army and a guard could have only one result that would be disastrous for the guard. One word from her would have ended everything for Baldos. She saw through the Iron Count's ruse as though by divine inspiration, and profited where he least expected her to excel in shrewdness. Marlanx had deliberately invited the assault by the guard. His object had been to snare Baldos into his own undoing, and a horrible undoing it would have been. One blow would have secured Marlanx's desired result. Nothing could have saved the guard who had struck his superior officer, but Beverly had caught it in time. "To die is easy, your highness. You have just to ask it of me," said Baldos, whose face was pale and drawn. "She has no intention of demanding such a pleasant sacrifice," said Count Marlanx. Later, maybe she may sign your death warrant. I am proud to hear, sir, that a member of my corps has the courage to face the inevitable, even if he is an alien and unwilling to die on the field of battle. You have my compliments, sir. You've been on irksome duty for several hours, and you must be tired and hungry. A soldier suffers many deprivations, not the least of which is starvation in pursuit of his calling. Mess is not unwelcome relief to you after all of this arduous duty. You return to the barracks at once. The princess is under my care for the rest of the campaign." Baldos looked first at Beverly and then at the sarcastic old general. Yetive and her companions were waiting for them at the fountain 100 yards away. "You may go, Baldos," said Beverly in a low voice. "I'm not fatigued or—" Baldos began. "Go," said Marlanx. "Am I to repeat a command to you? Do you ignore the word of your mistress?" There was a significant sneer in the way he said those words. "Mistress?" said Baldos, eyes blazing, arm half raised. "Count Marlanx," said Beverly, drawing herself to her full height and staring at him like a wounded thing. "I humbly implore you, do not misconstrue the meaning of the term, your highness," said the count. "Ah, you've dropped something. Permit me. It's a note, I think." He stooped down quickly, too quickly, and recovered from the ground at her feet the bit of paper which had fallen from her hand. It was the note from Ravone de Baldos, which Beverly had forgotten in the excitement of the encounter. "Count Marlanx, give me that letter," said Beverly. "Is it a love letter? Maybe it's intended for me. At any rate, your highness, it is safe against my heart for now. When we reach the castle, I'll be happy to return it. It's far safer with me. Come, we go one way, and— Why have you not left, sir?" He said this in his most sarcastic tone to Baldos. Beverly was trembling. "I have not left, and I shall not go until I see you obey the command of her highness. She asked you for that piece of paper," said Baldos. "Dog! Do you mean to question my—" "Give over the paper. If you hit me, man, it will be—" "If I strike, it will be to kill, Count Marlanx. The paper, sir?" Baldos towered over the Iron Count, and there was danger in his daredevil voice. "Surely, sir, I am only obeying your instructions. Protect the princess and all that is hers with your life. That's what you told me." wish you hadn't done this, Baldos, said Beverly in a panic. You have threatened my life. I will not forget it, fool. Here's your precious note, your highness. My condolences to the writer. Marlanx passed the note to her and then looked triumphantly at the guard. I dare say you've done all that you can, sir. Do you wish to add anything more? What can one do when dealing with his superior and finding him a coward? Said Baldos. You are reputed to be a brave soldier. I know that to be false, or I would ask you to draw that sword you carry and... Baldos was drawing his own sword as he spoke. Baldos, said Beverly. Her evident concern infuriated Marlanx. In his heart, he knew Baldos to be a man of superior birth and a foeman not to be despised from his own station, but carried away with passion, he flashed his sword out of its sheath. You have drawn on me, sir, he snarled. I must defend myself against even one such as you. You will find I am no coward. Time is short for your gallant lover, madam. Before she could utter a word of protest, the blades had clashed, and they seemed hungry for blood. It was dark in the shadow of the trees, and the trio were quite alone with this tragedy. Beverly heard Baldos laugh recklessly in response to Marlanx's cry of, "Oh, the shame of fighting with such trash as you!" Don't joke in a time like this, Count, said Baldos softly. Remember that I lose, no matter which way it goes. If you kill me, I lose. If I beat you, I lose. Remember, you can still have me shot for insubordination and conduct unbecoming... Stop! Shrieked Beverly. At risk of personal injury, she rushed between the swordsmen. They both drew back and dropped their points. Not even a dozen passes had been made. I beg your highness's pardon, said Baldos, but he did not sheath his sword. He forced it on me, said Marlanx. You were here to witness it all. I was stupid to let it get as far as this. Put up your sword till another day. If another day ever comes to you. He's gonna have you shot for this, Baldos, said Beverly. Baldos laughed bitterly. Tied and blindfolded, your highness, to prove that he is a brave man and not a coward. It was short but sweet. Would that you had let the play go on. There was a spice to it that made life worth living and death worth dying. Any other commands for me, your highness? His manner was so cool and defiant that she felt the tears spring to her eyes. Only that you put up your sword and end this affair by... Go into your room. It is punishment enough, said Baldos. Tomorrow's execution won't be any harder. Marlanx, on the other hand, had been thinking all this time. Into his soul came the thrill of triumph, the consciousness of a mighty power. He saw the chance to benefit by the sudden clash and had not been slow to seize it. Never fear, my man, he said easily. It won't be as bad as all that. I can afford to overlook your insurrection tonight. There will be no execution, as you call it. This was an affair between men, not between man and the state. Our gracious referee is to be our judge. It is for her to pardon and condemn. It was very pretty while it lasted, and you are too good of a swordsman to be shot. Go your way, Baldos, and remember me as Marlanx the man, not Marlanx the general. As your superior officer, I congratulate and commend you upon the manner in which you serve the princess. You will always find me ready to fight and die for her, said Baldos. Do you think you can remember that? Count Marlanx. I have a most excellent memory, said the Count. With a graceful salute to Beverly, Baldos turned and walked away into the darkness. A perfect gentleman, Miss Calhoun, but he's a wretched soldier. He is a hero, said Beverly quietly. Do you mean it when you say you aren't going to have him punished? He did only what a man should do, and I glory in his folly. I may as well tell you point blank, you alone can save him. He does not deserve leniency. It is in my power, and it is my providence to have him utterly destroyed, not only for this night's work, but for other, better reasons. I have proof he is a spy. He knows I have proof. That is why he wanted to kill me now. It is for you to say whether he shall meet the fate of a spy or be unscathed. You have but to exchange promises with me, and the guardsman goes free. But he leaves Edelweiss forever. Today, he met the enemy's scouts in the hills, as you know quite well. Messages were secretly exchanged, which you do not know of course. Before another day is gone, I expect to see the results of his treachery. There may even be something tonight. You don't believe me, but wait and see if I am not right. That man is one of Prince Gabriel's cleverest spies. I do not believe that. You will not accuse him of these things, said Beverly. Besides, if he's a spy, why should you shield him for my sake? Don't you owe it to Graustark to... Here's the princess, he told her. Your Highness, he said, Miss Calhoun has a note which she refuses to let anyone read but you. Now, my dear young woman, you may give it directly into the hands of Her Highness. Beverly gave the general a look of scorn, but without any hesitation placed the note in Yediv's hands. The Iron Count's jaw dropped, and he licked his lips with his tongue 2 or 3 times. Something told him that a valuable chance had disappeared. I shall be only too happy to have your Highness read the result of my first lesson in the Graustark language, she said, smiling. 2 men in uniform came rushing up to the party, seemingly very excited. Saluting the general, they both began to speak at once. One at a time, said the Count. What is it? Other officers of the guard and a few noblemen from the castle came up too, out of breath. We have seen signal fires in the hills, Your Excellency, said one of the men from the fort. There's a circle of fires, and they mean something important. For half an hour they have been burning near the monastery, also in the valley below, and in the mountains to the south. There was an instant of deadly silence, as if everyone was awaiting a crash. Marlanx looked steadily at Beverly's face, and she saw the triumphant, accusing gleam in his eyes. Helplessly, she stared into the crowd of faces and saw Baldos, who suddenly appeared in the background. His face wore a hunted, imploring look, and then the next moment he had disappeared back among the shadows. And that is the end of chapter 19, which did not go the way I was expecting it to. I mean, I was expecting Baldos to be arrested, which he wasn't. I wasn't expecting that there would be suddenly signal fires up in the mountains. Maybe he is a spy. I'm not going to believe it until we get to the end of the book and find out for sure, but something tells me that the deal that old Count Marlanx is offering is Beverly marries him and he lets Baldos go free. But I don't think that's going to happen. Even if Beverly were inclined towards it, now that there seems to be activity in the hills, possibly from the enemy, hard to say. Anyway, thank you as always for listening. I hope that you enjoyed that chapter. It definitely seems like things are picking up now. So we're just going to have to wait and see what is going to happen in the final act of this book. I mean, yeah, we got about a quarter of the way still to go. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Anyway, thank you so much. Please do hit the thumbs up on your way out. It does always make me smile. And I will see you next time.